Okay, so Gary, we a couple months ago we had Benny Madrid talking about his one-on-ones with you and all his improvement with his EQ. And so, it kind of made me think, I'm like, we got to get Gary on a call to talk about, your journey with your emotional quotient and what you've done to improve in your EQ and really just how important it is for owners running companies to have, just good, strong, high levels of EQ and running their businesses, dealing with their people. So I'm going to pass the baton on to you, and I'm sure we'll have a bunch of questions as you go through this.
Sure, sure. So, well, appreciate being on the call and seeing everyone. Um, you know, Even what's defining EQ, I'm not sure how to even define it, but I do look at it almost like there's two different languages that we speak, or one is logic and one is emotion, and you need both of them. You gotta be good, at both those languages. Um, I think it's important in the relationships with our spouses or significant others. And I think it's important in with our children. And I think it's important to, when we're developing people to, be okay with emotions, understand the emotions, not be afraid of emotion, understand what emotions you have. Now, being that said, saying all that, I had I wasn't aware of all that for many years of my career. Uh, I was probably mid 40s, and I would read child development, I'd read about emotion and all that, and try to get it. But I don't think I really did. Although I thought I did. I had a very good marriage. Um, I don't know. So anyway, and I've been pretty good at developing people, but I ended up probably when I don't know, maybe 45 years old, maybe 44. I started Sidcore at 42, so I was probably 45 years old. And I went to this class at USC, and the class was basically for CEOs. And I wanted to go because I wanted to learn from some really good CEOs. I thought it was a great reason to just meet a bunch of people. And I thought I'd learn stuff. Oh, sorry, there's a helicopter outside. Um, so I take this, we go to this class. It was just about everything about business. But one of the things they did at the end of the day one, was a 3-day course. They gave us an EQ test. I never even heard of it. They said it was like an IQ, but for your emotional intelligence. So we end up taking the test, and then, like a couple hours later, they give us our scores, and then they put everyone's scores on the screen, not with our names behind it. Let's say there's 30 plus people, but you saw, you can know what your score was, and you see where you were. And I had the worst score on the EQ. I was stunned. I would never have thought that. I didn't think I'd be the highest, but I thought I'd be kind of in the upper part. And it was just stunning to me. So anyway, I'm like coming home from SC, trying to get all what happened. And I get home, I walk in, and Susan looks at me and goes, "What happened to you today?" I guess I must have looked like stunned, like I got hit by a punch or something. And I said, "Nothing, everything's good. Just went to a class at SC, no big deal." I had my notebook with me, and the kids were watching like something on TV all together with the family. I'm not big on TV, but if it's a family show, I think it was like American Idol or something. And if all my family wants to watch it, I want to love it too. So I'm sitting watching, and Susan's looking at me. She goes, "Are you okay?" And then I just started laughing and showed her the score and everything, and how bad it was. They said, where you were, and she goes, "That surprises you?" I go, "What?" "Yeah." She says, "You were raised in a home with no emotions. No one in your family knows emotion intelligence. You're like, you guys speak Russian. Emotions is English. You don't understand English when you speak Russian." And I was like, huh? And it made me feel better actually, because I was kind of ashamed before that. Then I figured, oh, well, I guess. So that had happened. And I'm thinking, wow. So like, how do you, and I read the Emotional Intelligence book by Daniel Goleman, but it didn't really sink in for me. I don't think I was getting any better. You know, I ended up at the same time period um, getting a coach, this guy, Dan Fredrickson, and he ran a company called Kinko's that made copies and stuff. And they were a big company, multi-billion-dollar company, and he took over when they were struggling financially, about 80 million, and ended up running and created a multi-billion-dollar business. Ended up selling it. The investors wanted to sell it, and they sold it to Federal Express, and it became FedEx Kinko's, and now it's just FedEx. And I wanted Dan to coach me because it was a similar business as ours, because the stores weren't owned by Kinko's. Some guy started as a copy guy, and then he ended up having a partial ownership. So everyone, all these different stores had partial ownership based on a bunch of things, similar to us, in a lot of ways. And Dan had a great reputation, and we had a couple people at Sidcor that used to work for him because they moved it to Texas after, it sold to FedEx, and most of the people didn't go with him. So we got luckily a few really good people. And they were the ones that sent me, I wanted to have Dan coach me, and I wanted to hire him as a coach. And, he said he didn't want to do it. Told Gail, I go, what? I mean, I'll tell him I'll pay him 10 grand a day, 5 grand for a half day, whatever he wants. And he still said no. So anyway, I go, well, can he meet me for lunch? Let's just have him meet me for lunch. So I could so Dan meets me for lunch. I said, I don't want to talk to you. You coach people. No one ever listens. They just want to do what they want to do anyway. I'm not wasting my time with you. And I said, hey, listen, Dan, if you tell me what to do, we could discuss it. If I disagree, I don't get it. But after we discuss it, if you say to do it, I will do it and report back to you. That's how desperately needed him. And I'll pay 10 grand a day, 5 grand for a half day. It's a lot of money, especially back then, 20 years ago. So I go to, and so right away, Dan, after lunch, he told me a couple things to do. I emailed him, hey, Dan, is this what, I want to make sure this is what you said. I want to be on the same page. He goes, yes. I do them. And then I'll report back to him after I did them. And then he gives the evaluate. And that was our relationship. That's what I had to do just to get me to coach him. I had to show I was the most amazing student. Fast forward, I don't know how many years, 4 or 5 years later, we had, through transaction, we had private equity, owned 70% of the business. That was before I bought them out. And there was a few board meetings where I lost my cool on the private equity guys. And Dan's looking at me, I'd worked with him for about, I don't know, 5 years at this point. And he goes, something's up. You're overreacting in a way that's not appropriate. I go, they're trying to do this, they're trying to, okay, that's their job. But you're not being professional. And that's an underlying, to me, Dan goes, an underlying issue that has nothing to do with what's going on. This has to do with something from your childhood or something. You got to go to therapy. I go, what? Me go to therapy? I go, Dan, are you crazy? I mean, I have a great marriage. I have all my childhood friends. Like, I'm so stable. I don't need therapy. And I was embarrassed about going to therapy because it was like a bad mark on you or something, I thought. He goes, yeah, I hear all that. You got to go to therapy. So then I go to therapy. And then the first therapist wasn't very good for me. He's a great guy, more for Hollywood people. And then the next guy got out, was just amazing. And then through this process, for me, I'm just saying my situation, I had no idea what my emotions were. He literally, when he'd ask me what emotion we talk about, what emotion, I'd have no idea. Then I started a thing where I had a color during the day. I had a bunch of colors. And during my meetings and things, I had a color the emotion I'm feeling. I mean, this is like what you do for kindergartners. But we worked on that so I could feel my emotions. And then I was afraid of other people's emotions. And so then I had to get comfortable when other people are emoting. I wanted to fix it or get mad at them and all that. I just didn't react well. Then I had to learn to go, it's just emotions. Emotions, they're not good or bad. They just are. So through this process, I went with Dan the first year every week. Obviously expensive, luckily I could afford it, but and then I did every other week for 10 years. And through that process, I learned a lot about emotions. And now, where before I'd be in the same conversation and someone's all stressed out about what's going on and they're very emotional, and I would be like stressed like crazy about it. Now I just understand it. I don't get triggered by it anymore. Now again, Jamie and I were talking about it the other day. Uh, was that yesterday? That was yesterday. Golly,
Yeah.
yesterday. And like I don't know if therapy is the total answer. It helped me a ton. So I'm a big fan. And believe me, I don't want to share everyone in the world that I'm doing therapy, because some people could take it the wrong way. But to the people that are important to me, I want them to let them know the reality of my life. And it may be helpful to you guys. If I had my way, and actually it's funny, I'm meeting a lady in a little bit. I'm the co-chair of the admissions committee. I'm on the board of my country club, which is I would never recommend anyone to do, um, but the one the is a husband and wife, and the wife is a PhD from Stanford in clinical psychology, and but what she does now is she does executive coaching. So one of the things I want to ask her is like, do companies like hire full-time therapists that anyone could use? Is that even allowed? Because I think that would help. And because I think it is important. The other thing that Al had me do, which is equally as important, is meditate. He got me on this app called Headspace, like 119 bucks a year, 119 bucks a year. Great investment. What happens through my breathing, and it helps me understand the emotion, or when I get triggered or when I'm not at my best, because I'm more attuned to my breathing. And like I could tell my breathing's getting something up, there's some emotion coming, and it helps me. Now, again, I'm probably, I'm not, because I'm so far behind because I didn't grow up with emotion, it's harder for me. For some people, it's going to be easier. But I do think to have a great, look, I had a really good marriage with Susan, but it's got a way better since Al. My relationship with my dad's way better. Now, I always liked my dad because I felt like the beauty of my dad is that I felt like I got groomed by a Marine drill sergeant. So he got me the right habits, this and that, but, he could trigger me pretty easy sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, and now our relation is unbelievable. So, so, I mean, look, I know therapy is very expensive. Not all therapists are good. Um, uh, it's work. But there's other ways to do it too. I think if you have a partner that has a knack for it, where you could just express yourself without being judged, without them trying to fix it, without them stressing out, and you could emote to someone and just get it out in a safe environment, that will help you too. Because whatever gets sunlight gets cured. What gets buried in the darkness becomes cancer. So it's just expressing. I was telling a story with Jamie because Susan and I were with like some of our best couple friends in Las Vegas recently, last week, and he's having problems uh, uh, sleeping because he was a striker, fighter, and he has this nerve thing in his hands, and so he burns at night, and it's hard to sleep. So anyway, I didn't know I knew he had a problem sleeping, but like most of my buddies, have problems a little bit sleeping. And so he's, we're up at night and we're, at their suite in Vegas and we're talking to like 1 in the morning. And he's telling us his whole story about it and what he's done and, the ring he has to tell how he's sleeping. We spoke about it for an hour, at least hour and a half about his sleeping. We meet him, we said, okay, let's meet 10 at the breakfast place in the morning. He goes up, it's amazing. I had the best night's sleep in in 10 years. right? And his wife, who's a therapist, goes, yeah, because you were willing to talk about it with Gary and Susan. We'll get, you know what I mean? So even though the wife's a therapist, but it was him talking to us that made him get a good night's sleep. So there's other things you could do, with Benny and Benny's comments, it's more situational. Benny comes here a lot, like he's here next week. He likes to come for the day. I think part of it, is that, he just wants to see what someone's life, a generation older than him looks like. Um, I don't think he didn't have the fam or his fiance Julian. They didn't have like the normal family upbringing, let's say, and he likes, just feels good to him to see it. But at the same time, we go over situations with this person or that person or his children, and we talk it through, and a lot of it gets down to emotions, where, you know, how our emotions get in the way, or what the emotions other people are feeling, and also the comfortness where being comfortable with emotions has helped me is that I know struggle is good for people. I know it's good, but it's hard to see people struggle that you love, or care for. So in the business, we'll have someone on our team that's really struggling. I know it's good for him, but I just see him in that pain. I just want to give him the answer. And sometimes that's appropriate, but sometimes you need to struggle. And the last story I'll tell before I open questions is that with my oldest granddaughter, Olivia, she'll be 7 in August. It's an interesting phenomenon because she's, you know, wasn't naturally strong or athletic, let's say. And we'd go to the park a couple of days a week, and she would try to do the monkey bars. And there'd be like thinner, littler girls that would fly through it, easy. And, Olivia would, she's more muscular and all, or bigger, but she would couldn't do it. Her shoulders weren't strong enough. And she'd get scared and, calls me Daw. Daw, get me every two things, but she'd be so enthusiastic about it. And I thought to myself, I could kind of show her how to swing and all that in one arm, one arm. She goes like this, boom, boom, rather than swinging like you're supposed to do. But I thought to myself, the struggle's good for me. So I'd rather have her learn how to struggle and stay enthusiastic than once I teach her how to do monkey bars, then she lost that big opportunity to struggle. So she's we're at the park all the time. She always wants me to take her. She'll get the dirt and rub it in her. The only kid that would do that. Gets the dirt, rubs it in her hands, does one or two and get me, and that was going on for 6 months. So anyway, and then she thinks she's so good. It was kind of crazy to tell her friends to come watch how good I am at monkey bars. Boom, boom, and get me. It was interesting to me. I love that she could struggle enthusiasm, but there would be times my emotion would go, God, I feel for her. I remember there's another grandfather with his daughter the same age who was flying through the monkey bars, and I was feeling a little embarrassed. I felt that emotion. I go, oh, I feel that. But yet I said, no, that's just an emotion. Let it pass. It's okay. I want her struggling. And then Benny was spend the day with Olivia and me at the park, and Benny saw it, and Benny in 2 seconds showed her how to do it. And then she was doing it, and she's film me, to show everyone I could do it. And she did it. And, and it was probably the time to do it. But I think Benny felt bad for her. And I love the struggle. Now, you don't want people to struggle too long. But what I noticed with her is that now she's doing gymnastics. I mean, there's kids that can do amazing tricks, and she's, she doesn't learn them as quickly. But man, she'll stay at the same trick for months. And to me, that's better than learning quick trick quickly, because the struggle in life makes things good as long as you could let your emotions be calm. And now I could let people struggle when they need to. And I'm calmer. I wish I was that way more with my own kids when they're younger, but so be it. Anyway, that's what I was going to share with you guys. Jamie, any questions or anyone else, any questions?
Well, I'll start off with a couple questions and I'll open it up. But I mean, first of all, I appreciate your willingness to be vulnerable and share that with us. I mean, my first thought when I hear you say that is, how did you go on to be as successful as you are without strong EQ muscles?
So, what it is that I think for me, I'm a really kind person and good and consistent with strong character, and really good people like being around me on my team. That's what Dan Frederick says. He also says my skills aren't so great. So when I first met him, he goes, "How do you do so well with the worst skills of any CEO I ever met?"
Hmm.
Because you rely too much on just being you, but you got to learn some skills. And eventually Dan taught them to me and Vera. But I didn't have great skills either, Jamie. But who I was really strong. I was incredibly tenacious and hardworking, and I always had a couple skills that bought me a lot. I'm great at interviewing people and recruiting people, and I'm really good at developing people. And that's a passion of mine, to develop people. And I got lucky because I have an 8-year-old younger brother who, even when I was like 9, 10 years old, I got to develop him. I got to be the best example. I got to change my game to be the best example for him. And I want to build his confidence. So I think I just got, and you can knock me down 100 times. I'm getting them back 101, and I'm coming back strong. There's like something with me that I don't get the same frustration that other people get. I noticed that I golfed today. So my birthday's Saturday, but no one's around Saturday. So I took my son-in-law and my 2 best childhood friends golfing at the club, and I hit like I was having the best round I've ever had, and I just hit the worst shot. And when I was in the rough, I couldn't get out of it on a shot, and it cost me a par, which I needed on a kind of easier hole, and I didn't have no emotion about it, no frustration or anything. It's just, so I'm like, okay, well, what do I learn from this? And so I am like, and I wanted to be successful so badly, I would do anything it took. Obviously with character and dignity, but like I just put the effort in. I was lucky Susan was really cool about it.
Hmm.
I mean,
And
she would go
so,
on Saturdays and take the kids to my brother, where my brother worked on Saturday, but he worked in the housing track. He sold at the model home, and they could run around the model home just for something to do.
hmm.
So
And so for all of our owners who are, dealing with, dozens of people, I guess 2-part question. Part A, how important is it to, like, should this be an area of focus for every owner? Like, hey, I want to improve in my EQ, even if you're strong, even if you're good. I mean, what are your thoughts with that?
no, look, I was very successful without it. So is it a priority? I don't know. Um, but if you want to have a really good marriage, as best as it could be, I think it's pretty important. More with your children and your wife or husband or significant other. I think it's more important for that.
Yeah.
But it does help a work a ton. It does
Yeah.
help a work a ton. So I don't know. I like it. I mean, if I had my way, I'd have every owner get therapy. But obviously it's not practical. People got to really want it and have skin in the game and all those things. Um, but I do think it's important.
Well, it could be part of the ICL agreement. I guess if we get an email with the
Yeah.
ICL agreement changing, we'll know where it came from.
Yeah, no, yeah, that would be.
Um, well, you did say something to me years ago, and kind of makes me wonder if you were already going down the path of EQ improvement. But you're like, Jamie, people aren't going to remember what you said. They're not going to remember what you did. They're just going to remember how they felt around
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
So you really believe
Yeah,
that?
but I see, even without understanding emotion, I can make people feel good because I care about them. They could feel it. I'll put the effort in to help them. I could help develop people. I can, and even though my emotional understanding wasn't very good.
Hmm.
And I learned a few things. I mean, I remember early on in our marriage where this was very early on. Susan was a kindergarten teacher, and she'd come back complaining about the principal or fellow teachers, and you know, and I'm older than her, like you know, not you know, I'm four grades ahead of her. So I always and I was like, you know, I was very mature for my age, even at a young age. And she was 19 when we first dated, and I was 23. That seemed like a big gap. And so when she was a teacher and she'd have an issue, I go, "Oh, just do this. No big deal. Just do this, this, and this." And then she'd get real mad at me more. And I go, "Hey, I'm just trying to help." And this was going on like 3 or 4 different times. And I'm thinking, and then I was reading somewhere in a book was where you're gonna kind of empathize. I didn't really understand it. Repeat back what they're feeling, whatever. And so she'd go, "Yeah, I can't believe the principal did this." And then I go, "What? Wow, the principal did that?" And all of a sudden it'd be great. And I'm going, "Whoa!" And I'd do it again the next time. I just would be like, repeat back. "Oh, this teacher said that. Wait a minute, that teacher said that?" Because yeah, can you believe it? No way. So that was going on for about 3 or 4 months. And then all of a sudden she goes, "What? Are you just parroting me? Did you read in some book that all you have to do is," I go, "Yeah, I did." So it didn't really, I tried things, but I didn't really get it, you know? So, you know, I don't know.
All right, any questions here from the team?
Yeah, Gary, I'm curious. You said the first therapist you went to wasn't too great, and then you had to move to a second one. If you were looking for a new one, what would you like look for? How do you grade and evaluate it? Like,
Well,
what do you start with?
so first, if you get a referral from someone, that'll help. If not through Psychology Today, they have a thing where they, you know, in your area, you put in the zip code and you just look at what just seems right to you, get a kind of a feel for it. But what happened on the first therapist, so I had watched The Sopranos, and when Tony went through therapy, how emotional it was, he'd have tears and all that kind of thing. Well, the first therapist didn't, I wasn't crying at all. It was like a logical, intellectual exercise. And after about 3 sessions, I go, "This doesn't seem right to me. I'm not getting anything out of it." You know, and so then I had someone recommend Al. And then I went to Al, and within 10 minutes I'm crying, which is a good thing, you know. And then he was good. You know, he understood like my drive to be successful. He respected that. He worked with a lot of business people, successful business people. And so that helped too a little bit. Not that the other guy didn't, he did too, but um, I don't know. Sometimes you got to try a few. And then you'll know you're just feeling like you're getting some out of it, sparking these emotions, thinking things that you like. I would go, you know, like one of the things he had to burst my. I thought I had this fairy tale perfect childhood. And it was good in a lot of ways, and then I won the genetic lottery to be born in my house. But there were some issues there that I didn't see, and then he kind of it popped it, and I could look at it more realistically and why some of the things that kind of affected me in the way that they did. You know, I could see I'm just getting something out of it. It was hard because, um, it wasn't my natural. If anyone needs, I could help you, you know, find someone. I mean, um, and how to go about the process, but um, you could reach out to me later.
Well, again, Gary, we thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your journey and your story. I think it's quite amazing that and I've seen the improvement. I mean, I feel like I've been on the receiving end of your improvement, like
Yeah.
your empathy and your just attention to how people are feeling, I think is
Mhm.
there's a difference for sure over the
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. And one of the things too is that at first it was really hard for me to tell people I went to therapy. Like I didn't want anyone to know. It was like a mark of shame or something. But you know, I look at it, what is my job? My job is developing people. You know, big part of my job. So if I'm there to develop people and I have people that I work with are working so hard on pushing themselves to be the best version, then I gotta let people know what I do, even though I don't want anyone to know. Because it's more important that I'm doing my job and developing people than it is what people think of me. I don't care. The long run. It's not as, well, I care, but it's not as important as doing my job.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Gary, and happy
Okay, you
belated
guys.
Saturday.
Okay, I'll see ya.
Okay.
Bye-bye,
Bye.
everyone.